Cost of living index has revealed Australians on JobSeeker are struggling to afford the basics, sparking calls for the government to urgently increase income support payments. Joining us this afternoon is Anglicare Australia Executive Director Casey Chambers. Casey, thanks so much for joining us. We know so many people are doing it so tough at the moment. What are you hearing?
Thanks, Tash. Yeah, so Anglicare Australia services right across the country see thousands of people daily, and what they're telling us is that they just cannot make ends meet. And in fact, this research finds that, for example, a family of two parents on JobSeeker allowance with two children need $428 more every week than they're getting, just for the basics. We just talked about grocery, transport and rent. And what we hear from people is that they're cutting down on food. Parents are skipping meals. They're cutting out the nutritious food that we know, is good for people but is expensive. And of course, things like prescriptions don't get filled, car insurance doesn't get paid. And really sadly, sometimes children are kept home from school because there isn't enough money to put food in that lunchbox. And parents are really conscious of that.
Casey, how important is it that the government supports our country's most vulnerable?
Well, one of the things that we often don't realise is that while we're all talking about cost of living and inflation, it's not a cost that's borne equally. And those families that are already on very low incomes, they are really bearing the brunt of this. And if we do have children, and there's 875,000 Australian children in households that are reliant on these payments, those kids are they're going to miss school, they're going to grow up without the most nutritious food, and their parents are making daily decisions, which leads to a huge mental load and level of anxiety and angst in that household. It's just not feasible that that's something that, we're all talking about costs, but we are a rich country. We do have the capacity to raise these benefits, and it just doesn't seem feasible that we should be allowing this to continue to happen.
So, Casey, what exactly would you like to see from the government?
We would like to see some attention on these benefits. The recent budget was great on things like the tax reform, and we really welcome that. But there was nothing. There was not a word about JobSeeker, parenting payment. We need to see these increased. We talk about putting them to the level of the Henderson poverty line, and let's get it out of becoming this political football that it has become. Let's have an independent commission. But we also know that utilities break people, that those utility bills. So we are looking at a debt forgiveness program. Many families and households who are better off have already got the batteries and the solar panels. The households we work with haven't, and they've got an average debt of $3,000. If we can forgive those debts before we move into the new renewable system, that would be great. We also need to look at housing, and we'd like to see those grocery reforms baked in as well, just so that we can look at how those costs keep going up. But really, it is down to those income support payments.
Incredibly important. We really appreciate you joining us, Casey. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tash.
The death toll